Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, we're going to be looking at a very exciting new card from the upcoming Forbidden Light expansion. It's Frogadier. And ladies and gentlemen, Frogadier, it's a middle evolution, right? The evolution that usually gets very little love. And yet, this is the second Frogadier we've had recently that's really, really good. Now, being a water Pokemon is quite handy, of course. As I always mention, you got access to Brooklet Hill, which is handy for searching out those basic Froakies. Not to mention that you also have access to Aqua Patch if you want to accelerate energy, although this is a Pokemon to which you won't really be accelerating energy. The grass weakness isn't ideal because we've got stuff running around like Tapu Bulu and like Golisopod. The good news is they're going to be one-hit KOing you anyway. Having 80 HP means you're out of range of a Horn attack or a First Impression when Golisopod did not become active that turn, so it could be a little bit worse, and 80 HP isn't particularly high, but it's still more than we got on the last Frogadier, so that's alright by me. Retreat cost of 1 is fairly good because, well, it's a low retreat cost to be perfectly honest with you. And the fact that you are a water Pokemon means you could be hitting weakness against Volcanion and associated Pokemon. But as we're going to see as we go through this video, Frogadier here is not really a Pokemon that's going to come in and do lots of big attacks and take loads of prizes. It is there for a different reason. And I know we don't always do videos about middle evolutions, but ladies and gentlemen, Frogadier has more than earned it. The headline, so to speak, is the ability here, which says, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And if that sounds familiar, it gosh darned well should, because it is the exact same ability that we saw on the Golbat that first came out in Phantom Forces, although did receive a reprint in Generations. And the thing is, that card was good. That card saw an awful lot of play. So I see no reason whatsoever this Frogadier would not see play for the same reason. It all comes down to the age-old adage, or at least something that I say quite a lot. Doing extra damage is always good. Now, just to be clear, this isn't like something like an Acidui, where every turn you get to put 2 damage counters on your opponent's side of the field. But then again, Decidueye is a Stage 2 Pokemon that if knocked out gives up 2 prizes. Not ideal. Whereas this Frogadier, okay, it's only once when you evolve it up, but it's a Stage 1 and it's a single prize Pokemon, so that sounds alright by me. And dropping 2 damage counters here is pretty good. We've got a whole bunch of Pokemon out there, Rolt stands to mind, although there's about 57 other examples that have 60 HP, which means that 3 of these will get a KO. But of course it doesn't need to just be these. Let's take something like a Tapu Koko promo. Maybe you use Flying Flip in conjunction with this, you drop 2 abilities and then Flying Flip with a Tapu Koko, that's a KO while doing 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And of course, it's not like this is a one-shot deal, because as we saw when Golbat was big first of all, we've got a whole bunch of options here. If your Pokemon end up damaged, you can use Ace Roller to pick it up and then of course re-evolve. And the ideal here is that you've got a Froakie on your bench so that when you pick up Frogadier, you can then immediately evolve your bench Froakie and you are off and rolling and life is good. Then, of course, don't forget the Super Scoop Up. Got a bit of a reprint in Burning Shadows. That can be used on a coin flip to pick it up, and Super Scoop Up was a card that was used quite heavily when Golbat was around previously. And let's not forget our old friend Devolution Spray. We've been seeing Devolution Spray to reuse abilities on something like a Raichu from Burning Shadows. There's no reason you couldn't use it to just keep reusing Frogadier here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a good ability. It's a great ability that was great last time round and saw a lot of play. I mean, as an example, it saw play with Seismitoad EX, whereby you would use Quaking Punch to stop your opponent playing items, and then you'd consistently just reuse Golbat to do damage. And it was also used with Landorus EX, which did 30 damage to the active, 30 damage to the bench with its Hammerhead attack. Oh, wait! That's exactly the same as Buzzwole's Jet Punch. Now, we're not in exactly the same format as we were before, so it doesn't necessarily carry over. But if Golbat Seismitoad was good, we've certainly got reason to believe that Landorus plus Frogadier could be good. Of course, there are a few other dimensions we need to talk about here. Golbat had Crobat, and some of you that were playing back then have probably been screaming at the screen, stop mentioning Golbat without mentioning Crobat. Now, interestingly enough, Golbat did get a reprint in Generations, but Crobat didn't, which was a little bit sad. But of course, Crobat came in, and when you evolved it up, you got to put 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So you put 2 damage counters down when you evolved into Golbat, 3 damage counters down when you evolved into Golbat, then you would play something like a Super Scoop Up, and in theory, if you could have a Zubat and a Golbat on the bench, then you could immediately evolve into Golbat to do 20, and Crobat to do 30, and you would just basically keep doing this over and over again. It was good. We don't know what Greninja does, but that brings me to my next point. We know we're getting a Greninja-GX in Forbidden Light. It has been confirmed by Pokemon themselves that Greninja-GX is coming in this set, and we have seen a tiny blurry image of Greninja-GX, but unfortunately nowhere near enough to actually try and decide what's in it. Hey-ho, you can't win them all. So we don't know what Greninja-GX does, but it's going to do something, and hopefully it's going to do something quite good. If it's got an ability that drops damage counters like this, or it's got some kind of spreading attack that does decent spread damage, then there's going to be a lot of synergy, but this is all ifs, buts, and maybes. The other thing we've got to bear in mind here, the kind of elephant in the room, so to speak, if the new Greninja-GX is really good as an attacker, at least until the rotation, we've just got Water Duplicates Frogadier. And if you just want to set up a whole bunch of Greninjas, and I'm sorry, but Water Duplicates Frogadier is just better, because it helps you set up your stage 2s. 1 water energy, and you get to search for up to 3 Frogadier, hopefully none of them are prize, put them straight onto the bench, and then you can evolve them up into Greninja the following turn. This is one of the things that's made Greninja such a good deck over the past couple of years, although I've not been a fan, and though every time we got it on the European stream it bricked horribly and lost, it's still a potentially good deck going forward. If you take the existing Greninja deck, I don't believe we're going to see people play this new Frogadier, because this is going to be our May set Forbidden Light, so we basically got 3 or 4 months while this Greninja will be legal with the new Frogadier. And although the ability is awesome to spread damage around, and let's face it, if we bring in things like Greninja Break and the X and Y Greninja, which have both rotated, this line is used to spreading a bit of the old damage around. It's still not something we want to do because Water Duplicates is too good an attack. And if you use Water Duplicates to grab out a Frogadier, then it goes onto the bench straight from the deck, not from your hand, and you lose the ability. So we need to see what Greninja-GX does before we can properly judge this Frogadier. But it really does come down to, are you just setting up Greninja to attack, in which case the Water Duplicates Frogadier is the way to go? Or are you executing a strategy which involves spreading a lot of damage around using abilities and then attacking, in which case this new Frogadier might be a way to go? But what I would say is, when we had the old Golbat Crobat line, they were not really their own decks per se, they were played with stuff like Seismitoad, like Landorus. If you're using these abilities, you want another attacker, preferably basic, preferably single prize. Look at the 2 examples I've just given you. If it's a Greninja deck, you probably want Water Duplicates, at least until the rotation. But if you're using this as an ability, occasionally attacking with Greninja while using something like a Buzzwole, well, that, ladies and gentlemen, could be pretty good. There is an attack on Greninja, but it does 20 damage for 1 water energy. I mean, maybe if you're absolutely desperate, maybe if you're playing something like a Rainbow Energy. But let's face it, this is a Pokemon where we look at and go, oh, I like that ability. It is not a Pokemon we look at and go, hey, that seems like a game-breaking attack. It's not, it's really bad. Hey-ho. Can't win them all. Either way, I'm giving this Frogadier 4 Wassies, and the reason is very simple. Maybe we're going to have a good Greninja in the future we can pair with it, but even if not, Golbat had a good ability. Golbat saw a huge amount of play, and yes, it did see play after Crobat went away. I see no reason why this also wouldn't be a good card. But if you disagree with me, ladies and gentlemen, well, that's fine. That's why we have a comment section. So go down there, tell me what you think about this new Frogadier. Go nuts, but remember to be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. Check out my video game channel, Wossy Plays, and if you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, then go and check out patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.